Hello, everyone. Just letting everybody get on here as I get us set up. All right. Maybe we should go ahead and get started. I'm sure people can keep joining as we remind everyone who our presenters are. So joining you once again for this exciting, one of, I think, our favorite parts of the quarter is our seasonal quarterly release webinar, where we give everyone an update on what our newest features are, at least the highlights of what our newest features are. So I'm MK Wazalewski. I'm the product marketing manager here at ProcessMaker. Joining me is Jose Maldonado, our VP of product, who will be giving a demo here shortly. And then we also have members of our product and engineering and marketing teams here helping us behind the scenes and ready to answer Q&A, both using the Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen. And at the end, we'll have a few minutes at least for live Q&A if you have any remaining questions. First, I'm going to give you a quick refresher on some of the highlights of the past few webinars and releases, some of the themes that have come out so far. Then I'll run through the highlights of what we've come out with. Jose will give a quick demo, then we'll do our Q&A. All right. So before we dive into this, I want to make sure everybody knows our key dates here. So there were about 22 epics in engineering speak. So there are a bunch of improvements and features that came out in summer release. Earlier this week, we rolled it out to customer dev environments, and you will see it in production environments, meaning that all end users will have access to all these new features starting late September. So September 24th to 25th is when we'll have those updates. If you have questions about that, please contact your customer success team. All right. So I want to give a quick refresher to remind you how far we've come with a few of these in the last year. So we've had several updates around the concept of a smart inbox. So helping you complete your tasks faster, helping all of our users get more done in less time. In addition to that, on the design front, we've let you collaborate more easily through a range of features, including projects and collaborative modeler. We have two categories of AI. One is our AI assistant. That enables you to build things faster. It really facilitates design work. And then our AI agent, FlowGenie, which helps you not only use it once to generate something new when you're designing, but also helps you harness AI into your process every time you run it. So you can find a way to not just cut down time on design, but cut down time on everything you're doing. And finally, you might recall this spring we acquired some technology called Process Intelligence that helps you discover and optimize processes. And so I'm going to talk a little bit later about how we're incorporating that into our platform for all users. Okay, so these are the highlights for summer, but there are, like I said, about 20 new things that came out. So if you want to know more, if you want to know all the details, go to docs.processmaker.com. That's where you'll find things like our release notes and links to our quick start guides. So let's start with SlideShow. This is something, if you use Figma, you're familiar with this concept. This is where you create your process, you create all your screens and interfaces, and then you can share a SlideShow-like interactive tool that's like a demo that people can self-serve. You can share it with stakeholders within your company, everyone else who has to have buy-in on your process, and make sure that they understand how it's going to look and function as they use it in their everyday work once you launch. So this is great for sharing among people, so you can avoid that meeting of 20 people just to give them a quick demo. All right. Along those lines, documenting processes with AI. This is one of the newest things from our AI assistant. So we've had the ability to take each task in your process and give a little description, and that's how we've been documenting processes. We had to open each one individually. Now, with our AI assistant, from the modeler, you can open the documentation option, and Processito, our little AI assistant, will document your entire process in just a minute for you. So you can choose to overwrite existing things or edit what our AI assistant comes up with for you, and have that documentation ready when someone comes and asks whether you have it or not. FlowGenie, as promised, updates, big updates for FlowGenie. So we came out with this. It was really exciting in our spring release. So you could automate AI right into your processes. And now we've improved it. So if you use an LLM like ChatGPT or one of those other big models, it's usually a chat style interface. You say one thing, it responds, and you kind of train it. So then if you come back to that chat later, it already remembers everything you talked about before, and you just ask the next question. So we've remodeled FlowGenie to function very similarly to that. So now you can train your Genie, and on top of that, we've made it easier to reuse it throughout different processes. Okay. And I'm sure you'll see more of that in a few minutes. Yes, Jose's nodding. RPA integration. So we are a business process management and automation company. We make it easier for you to make a whole process more efficient. RPA helps you automate individual repetitive tasks where normally you would have one person interacting with an interface the same way over and over and over and over. Now RPA lets you create bots to automate that, and now you can integrate your RPA tool like UiPath, which is an industry leader. You can integrate UiPath directly into our process models. So it's automated right into your process flow. And now for the everyday user, Smart Inbox, as promised, continuing to make life easier for all of our end users. When you log in, you're presented normally with a very long list of, maybe a long list of tasks in your inbox. Our recommendation engine will say, hey, I noticed you have a couple of these that are due really soon. Do you want to work on those first? Then you can flag them as a priority and get those done. Email actions. We've had a email action feature in the past, but now we've built it up a little more. So you can complete a task completely from your email inbox without ever signing into the ProcessMaker platform. Complete approvals, reject, or follow links to other things. But you don't have to open a link that logs you into the platform. Or if you would rather just go through your to-do list and your task list in the inbox in ProcessMaker, you can also complete tasks that way. So either way, you have options, you get things done. And finally, process intelligence. As promised, we are integrating this into our platform. This is also a huge tool that's available on its own, but for our platform users, we're now letting you use it to understand how your processes are going, see some key metrics on case completion and things like that in the analytics tab. So I think we'll have a lot more coming out in the near future about that. But for now, I'm gonna let Jose take it away with the demo. Jose, you ready?
Awesome. Well, yes. Thank you, MK. I'm Jose, head of product here at ProcessMaker, and I'm happy to just give a quick tour on our summer release. Now, this is feature packed, so we will always short on time to cover all. So instead, this is going to be a brief overview of some of our most exciting features that we want to get in front of you all, and we'll have ample opportunities to expand on means and channels for us to get just more information out of what is available. So let's go and jump right ahead. We're seeing here our new refreshed UI. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as my demo user, Trusty Ringo. So, you know, at first, this is our designer tab. So at first, looks like a regular ProcessMaker instance. We've just, done some tweaks to the UI. I'm just going to go ahead, and here I have my human resources project. Let's go ahead in there, create an example that will help us showcase a couple of these new features. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new process. Let's just start from scratch. And let's say that we want to put together a candidate application review. So basically, this is going to be an opportunity for us to have some of our AI help us shortlist some of the applicants for our job openings. So let's jump right in. And here we've got our modeler. So let's go ahead and put some quick, simple elements in here. Basically, it's going to kick off. And what we want to do is start tinkering with the new FlowGenie tasks. So it's actually not a form task. We come in here and drag the new FlowGenie tasks. So hopefully some of you have already been playing with our first iteration of FlowGenies and you can appreciate the differences. But FlowGenies, as we've been discussing, is a way for us to drive entire LLM assisted tasks. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new FlowGenie for our candidate analysis. Now, of course, if you remember, our Genie editing and FlowGenie Studio used to be embedded straight in the modeler. Now we've made it an entirely separate designer environment, like we do with screens or scripts, so that you can reuse them more easily. So this is our full-blown FlowGenie Studio. Some recurring things that we had before. For instance, we can format how we want to get the response. We can send some data so we can test it. Now we also include a full tab of advanced configurations if you really want to tweak the temperature and the settings of your Genie to get different responses, make it more predictable, more consistent, offer it additional more power. So for now, let's tuck that away. Let's pick some text response and let's try it out. So usually how Genies would work is that you give it a prompt, so list 10 countries, and it would run on the fly. Now we first add it as a conversation entry, and then when we're ready to run through the entire conversation, we'll run it. So let's just go ahead and run through that. And sure enough, here are 10 countries. So this is the response. And you can see what we're building is a conversation between the user, which is us, and the assistant, which is our Genie. And every time this Genie is executed, it's going to go through the entire conversation, just collecting that insight. So let's say that we want to tweak this and say, now just from Europe. So we go ahead and add that to the conversation, toggling between users and the assistant. And let's go ahead and run that. And here's our response. There are 10 countries from Europe. All right, so this is making sense. Let's go ahead and use this structure to build our applicant review system. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these messages. Notice that you can remove messages from a conversation. Maybe just want to skip a step or the entire thing. So let's go ahead and start putting together something more in line with what we want to what we want to track here. So notice also we can include attachments, images, PDFs, URL links, CSVs, and this allows to give additional context for our Genie for its intelligence and decision making. So for instance, over here, I just did a quick Google search, and this is LinkedIn's blog post about tips to get you hired. So basically some insights into what makes a good resume. So what I'm going to go ahead is add this link as an attachment to our conversation. So I'm going to just give it a message and say, okay, take a look at the following site. And I'm giving it some context so it knows what to look for that offers pointers on writing a good resume. And then we add this to our conversation, and notice that by default, it's trying to expect an assistant response, but we toggle it back to user because we're still using our own voice. And I say, let me just pass along that site. So I'm going to clip that URL. We paste it here, and we add this to our conversation. All right. Notice also that for everything that we use as an external asset, we can then replace with a process variable, but I'm not going to use that now. We'll see that in a second. So based on the above, take a look at the following resume, and basically provide us a rating on its quality. So now we're going to give it a resume and have it run against those tips that we got from the external site. So over here, I have some sample resumes. I did a quick search. This is from the University of Illinois, offering tips to their students. So here's a sample for a student, Rachel Green, a research assistant, and a sample for Juan Garcia, a PhD in civil engineering. All right, so these candidates look great as samples. Let's just go ahead and add them to test this. So I'm going to add a PDF. Here's Rachel Green. All right, PhD in English. Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and add. As I mentioned, when this is in runtime, we can replace these test files for actual request information, so case files that have been submitted by using the process variable. But right now, we want to keep it to this actual file so that we can train with it. All right, so basically, take a look on the following resume, which is this. So now we can run it. So now the Genie is, again, it's repeating the entire conversation. It's figuring out what makes a good resume off of that link. And then it's going to let us know what that looks like for Rachel Green. And here we have, based on the recommendations, it's giving us some pointers, right? So, it's well formatted, it's neatly organized, content quality, and so on. So it looks like it did a great job, making the connection between the PDF and the site. It even offers a rating and some improvement recommendations. So that looks great. So similarly, I also went and did a Google search for, and let me just have it right here, for what makes a bad resume. So some resume red flags. This is just, a five-minute search, but it offers some context so that our Genie can also help distinguish the good from bad. So let's add that context. So now consider this list of resume red flags. And then we add the actual list. So let me just copy the link. All right. And then list any red flags on the resume above. So basically, let's get a sense of how that works, right? On the list. All right, let's try that out. So there are, all right, so here are some potential red flags. So no typos. Experience seems very relevant to academic research positions. It is a bit text heavy and dense, so it's hard to read quickly. So, it shows stable employment, overall a strong resume. So it seems to be working great. Let's try that. Let's try that one more time. So why don't we just go ahead and do the same thing here for Juan Garcia. And here what we have is the same thing. Does not contain any errors or typos. It is clear and text heavy. Now it's following the same approach. So it seems to be working great. So now I'm going to go ahead and ask a JSON for it so that we can actually use this in process. So return a field. So I'm going to go and start and call out what a JSON object is going to look like so that we get a sense on how we can use this downstream. So let's ask for a field called applicant with the name of the candidate from the resume. Let's ask for a field called rating, which is going to have a value, maybe let's say from 1 to 5, based on an overall summary. Let's also, we want to get the list of flags. So since there can be many flags, we're going to ask for an array of objects. We're going to call this red flags, and each is going to have basically 2 keys, one name and a detail. So it can just give us that context of what our red flags look like. So a list of all the concerns, found on the resume. So again, notice how we're kind of building a conversation. We're adding different context. Finally, include a field called summary, just to let us know what's the overall analysis on the candidate and reasons for that rating. Let's go ahead and add that. And now let's run it. And then, all right, so we've got kind of the same response. Here's one rating 4, but now notice it's structured as a JSON object, and this allows us to really manipulate this in the context of a ProcessMaker workflow. All right, so one more. I did a quick search at Glassdoor for ProcessMaker open job positions. These are actual listings that we have open at the moment. So what if we want our Genie to then, based on all this context, to figure out which role is the best fit for this applicant? So first, let's make it aware of these positions. So what are the open positions listed on the following page? I'm going to add this message. Then again, I'm still me, and I'm going to add that that link. All right, so it's gonna find these positions in a second. All right, and now let's just find out how that works. All right, it's running through the entire conversation, putting together all these pieces. All right. Open positions, perfect. SDR in Durham, a couple of SDR roles, account XX, RevOps, awesome. So now let's try to make that connection. It's on a JSON structure, which we defined as our response format. So what I'm going to do now is, since this prompt up here worked fine, I'm just going to reuse that. So let's copy this real quick. Plop it here at the end. All right. And I'm just going to tweak it to include the best fit. So then finally, let's go ahead and return a field called best fit. All right, with the title of the open position from the list above. Yeah, that better fits this candidate. All right. Right, based on their info. All right, so now we have a very rich conversation where we're telling what is a good resume, what's a bad resume, a couple of sample resumes, and then some job listings. So let's see if it's able to match our candidate to a job listing. So let's try that real quick. And here's our friend Juan, and then full response. All right, so everything else is still the same because we're using the same structure. However, best fit is recommended civil engineer. Of course, this is a doctor, a PhD on civil engineering. So it didn't really appreciate that we're trying to limit it to the positions that we are feeding in them, feeding it from our listing above. So this is great because it allows us to continue the conversation, nudging it. So instead of redoing any steps above, I'm just going to continue and say, no, try again. Just make sure that best fit is one of the positions. Is one of the positions from the open position list, right? Provided above. So don't go too creative on me and figure out which one of those. So that way, when we run it, it's going to go through the entire conversation. So it's going to appreciate the mistake, appreciate the nudge, and hopefully provide a better response next time. So here's it again. Here's Juan, and yeah, now sounds like from the list, he might be a great candidate for a RevOps manager. So this is how you kind of put together structured genies that have tons of context that can be used to enrich. And the entire trace of the conversation is going to be passed along to a process so that every time a genie task executes, it's going to repeat, it's going to rehab that conversation with itself so it really knows. And what's going to be the result of the last message of the genie is going to be the output of the task in process. So let's take a look at how that would work in process. So to do that, we just need to replace the file. So I'm just going to go ahead and say let's return the same thing. So we know that the structure works great, but what I want to do is now use a process submitted file in a previous task. So I'm going to say, just do the same thing for the following candidate. And then I'm going to give it an opportunity to identify a new PDF. I'm just going to pick any one of these kind of as a placeholder. But what we really want to do is check that box. So let's give it a second. What we really want to do is replace it when it's in runtime. So when it's testing, if we click run, it's going to use Rachel's. But when we use it in runtime, we're going to use a process variable. So I'm just going to declare a variable called my file, and basically it's going to look for a file that was uploaded in ProcessMaker with that variable, and it's going to use that. Before we do so, let's just make sure that the response is as expected. I just like to test it one last time because remember, whatever comes last in the conversation, that is going to be the output of our Genie task. So this, what we're seeing here, would be what this Genie is returning. So it looks great once it's in the context of the file that we've provided. So I'm going to go ahead and yeah, it looks great. I'm going to go ahead and remove this because now we want to generate that last message as the response, and we're going to use my file in order to use it in process. So let's save, and let's go back to our modeler. All right, so here's our Genie task, and here's the Genie that we just created. And then, as I mentioned, it's going to produce a result. So what we want to do is basically put a task ahead to get the file and a task after it so we can analyze the results. So let's just kind of scoot this over here. Let's go ahead and add a form task. All right, let me just clean this up. All right, and this is going to be the task where we submit a resume. And this is our Genie where we're going to analyze the candidate. Then we map the result. So the output of the Genie, we're going to call Genie results. So this is a variable that's going to store whatever comes in that last message from the Genie. So we need a screen here to collect that file. I have one teed up here real quick. All right, so let's open the screen on the screen builder. All right, here it is. It's got a file input, and this is going to be my file. All right, so let's come back here. And okay, so we pick up the file. It's going to run through the Genie. And then we need to get a sense of that Genie results in some later task. So for now, let's just go ahead and add a quick form task here. All right. So this form task also needs a screen. We don't have a screen, so but let me just add it here. Review the results. All right. And then, all right. So we don't have a screen, but we don't need it just to kind of get a sense of, is it behaving? So first, I just want to save and launch, get a sense of what the data is going to look like at that point. So let's go ahead and publish this. Let's go ahead and publish this process. And this gives us a chance to configure its launchpad real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of images. This is a completely optional step, but I really like taking advantage of a process browser. So you can add images or even videos if you have maybe a walkthrough of your process that you want to explain to your users how it's supposed to be used. In this, for this example, I have just some images here laying around about candidate selection. So I'm just going to drag them into our Launchpad. You can see here kind of a step-by-step of what this process should look like. All right, so I'm just going to drop these in here. Let's just maybe configure an icon for it. I don't know, I'm kind of partial always to this person writing rocket. All right. And perfect. So now if we go to our process browser, just click here our processes tab so we can see it while we keep our modeler. Okay, this is our process browser. This is everything that's available on this instance for us to play with as end users. Here's our candidate application process. Let's just go ahead and open this Launchpad. Here are the images that we put together. So in this Launchpad, also got some updates for summer. We can kind of tweak this, tuck it, make it what we want, expand on these images or videos so our users can get a sense of how that's going to look like. So we can also kind of hide this if we just want to focus on our data, maybe some counters. Whenever we've got new tasks, they're going to show up here first. And if we want to find our cases, they're easy to find here. We can customize the columns and so on. All right, so let's go ahead and kick this off. I'm going to go ahead and start this process. Let's go ahead and boot this up. All right. All right. Here it is. So I'm going to go ahead and pick a resume. Here's Rachel. Test. Let's submit it. All right. So as this loads, it's going to follow into the preceding task, which of course the following task, we didn't add a screen to this task, but that's fine. We can kind of spy into the data object. Let's switch to our data browser here real quick. This is all the data that's available at this case at this moment in the flow. So just tuck the information that we don't need. And we find here, there's an object for Genie results. So this is what came out of our Genie, and these are the pieces that you remember. We configured our summary or applicant, and we even have our object for red flags. So all of this allows us to then create maybe some task where we can use this. So perfect. So what we want to do is basically find a way to use these straight on our process. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and now we can add some context here. So normally we would create a screen that have these. That's still an option, but for now I want to showcase a new feature that is our email actions by email notifications. So actions by email allows users to submit to tasks through their email. So you'd remember we have an actions by email control here on the model, but using this involves the designers to choose, do they want to configure this or a task? It's an either or. And if you do an actions by email, it's not going to show up on the user's inbox. So instead, I'm going to pick for this example, it's still a task. It's still going to get on their inbox. It's still going to show that screen, but it's additionally going to show an email notification. So I'm going to add a new candidate for review as the subject. And then we're going to create a new email screen real quick to create a new email template. And this allows us that when the process reaches this task, the user will get both a task on their ProcessMaker inbox and on their email inbox using this screen here, this screen template. So let's create an email template real quick. I'm just going to create it simple. We can go ahead and call it, we're just going to notify candidate notify. All right. So this is what's going to what we're going to get when a new candidate submits. All right. Great. We just add it to our project, save. All right. So this is our screen builder. And you'll recognize it's a regular email screen builder, but we've got new controls for links and submit buttons. This allows us to collect those actions. So basically what we need to do here real quick is create a structure that takes these data points, the rating, the summary, and so on, everything that the Genie resulted, and put it on a template so we can present it to the user in their email. So I'm going to go ahead and add that now. Let's create a rich text. And then let's create a rich text and then start putting that together. So this is going to be a new candidate for you to review. Of course, we can format this as we want. For now, let's leave it kind of simple. And let's just start adding those values. So the candidate name from Genie results. And then let's add the rating. So Genie results rating. And rating. And then let's add the summary. So Genie results summary. So basically, we're taking all the values that are available at this point in the flow that were provided by the Genie and passing them along to the email template. Recommended position, and then the best fit. All right. Finally, we want to add all those red flags that are in a rich object in of themselves. So to do that, we can use a record list. And so this is going to build a table with those results. We know that the flags are in an object called red flags under Genie results. So let's add that here. That's going to match these red flags. All right, and they each have a name and a detail. So let's put that together. This is going to be our red flags. And then they each have a name and a detail, right? Yep, name and detail. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those as columns for our table. So name we can call the header, or we can call it issue. And then the value is the name because that's what matches the object. And then just one more. This is going to be detail. All right. Save. All right. Great. And we're almost good to go. We have a space here. We can remove this space. I just added too much controls, and we just add our action button. So once the person reviews these data, how do they want to route their process? So now we have submit buttons and email templates, and they work like regular submit buttons from our forms. So I'm just going to add an approve, and I'm going to add a reject button, and they're basically both capturing a new variable called approval with values yes and no, respectively. So variable approval, no. And we can tweak their look and feel. So we can leave it as a nice link here to kind of match our email vibe. All right, so let's take a quick preview. All right, so this is what I'm going to get on my email, and I get these actions. So users, while still having their task on their inbox, will be able to use this on their email as well. All right, so it's all set up. Let's go ahead and try it. We're still missing a screen, an actual screen for that review for the inbox, but that's fine for this example since we just want to use it through the email. So let's look for this candidate process real quick. It's right there. Let's kick this off. All right. All right. This is perfect. So let's add our good friend Garcia here. All right. It's submitting. All right. So now that we submitted this, this case is going to show up in our Launchpad. Now I don't have a task yet because the Genie is working on it. The case does exist, and once the task is ready for me to do something, it's going to show up on my task list. So let's give it a second, and there it is. So it shows up as a regular task, which is critical because actions by email didn't have this behavior. Now we know that there is no screen. If there were a screen, we can just submit it right then and there. But in parallel, alternatively, here's our new email. And now notice that we've got our details. Now it looks like I'm missing the name. Rating is here, summary, recommended position. I also messed that up. Let's check it out in a second. But otherwise, it's looking great. Approve and reject. So let's find out what's going on with these real quick. Let's go to the screen. So here's name, and let's take a look at the data. Yeah, and it looks like, yeah, we actually called it applicant, and it's best fit. All right, so it's a quick fix. Let's check that real quick. We replaced this for applicant. All right, just want to make sure that you all were paying attention. Let's put best fit. All right, so this should work. This should work great. So, all right, which means let's just go back to our email. We can go ahead and click approve, and this is going to route the process forward, the case forward. All right, what this means is if we go back to our task list, now the task is gone because the process has ended. Notice the approval, yes. And if we go to our list of completed tasks, notice that this task is letting us know that this task was actually completed through an email, even if it has a task assigned. So we can also keep tab on when users use their actual email notifications to submit these tasks. All right. Let's do one more example to kind of see it all in play end to end one last time. So here, I just did a quick web search and I found this is Homer Simpson's resume. It's pretty interesting because beyond a nuclear inspector, he's done a bit of everything. So let's go ahead and see what the genie thinks about that. So I'm going to go back to our Launchpad. And then let's kick the process one last time. Kick off the process one last time. All right. Here's our form. So let's go ahead and add that Homer resume. All right. It's got a bit of everything. And let's send it. So as we do, what's going to happen here is once we have a task to engage with, it's going to show up in our task list. So not yet. This allows also Launchpad users to really stay on top of what they have assigned because the first thing that they're going to see is their task. Of course, also when this kicks off, it's going to send us an email per that notification. So it should come in here any second. Oh, there it is. New candidate for review. Let's check that out. All right. So first off, all the data now is in order. Homer Simpson, rating 2. So Genie recognized a color-free career, various roles, an unprofessional email address. He was a fan of Chunky Lovers 53. So he'd make a great SDR. What do you know? I'm gonna let Frank know. All right, gaps in employment. There's that Chunky Lovers. Well, let's go ahead and reject it. Perfect. Response has been submitted. So if we go back to our Launchpad. Right, it's our previous case. Let's go back to our Launchpad. Let's check out our latest case. It's noticed that we don't have that task any longer because we submitted it by email. If we see all our completed cases, we pick up our last one, and there it is, approval no for Homer Simpson. So there it is, that we can see the trace was completed through an email. So that has been quite an overview. As a recap, we put together a very simple process that we did together. And you notice how in a few minutes we were able to train our Genie to recognize what a good resume is, what a bad resume is, pointers on how to improve, flags on what to keep an eye out on. We gave it a few examples, and then we strung that together in a process that allowed us to then send an email notification. So someone is on the fly, on the go, they whip out their phone, even if they have a ProcessMaker task and we're still tracking it, we still have it on the logs, we'll get a chance to submit that task. I know there's so much that we want to show on summer, so hopefully this just get your creative juices going, whet your appetite, so that we continue these demos over the course of the next weeks and months. I'm going to kick it back to you, MK.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose. That was great. Always great to see a real business case, but with a little bit of fun included in there. All right, so we're gonna open up for questions now. Let's see. Feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom. We did have one question. Someone noticed there are advanced settings in FlowGenie. I'm going to give this one to you, Ryan, so you're ready. There's some advanced settings to FlowGenie, including temperature and some other sliders. Ryan, could you elaborate on what those will do for people?
Sure, yeah, those are some of the more advanced settings that people who are very familiar with machine learning models and with large language models will want to tweak. We generally have those set to very sensible defaults, the types of settings that you would see if you're using a tool like ChatGPT or something like that. But if you do want more control over it, you're able to change a few different settings. Temperature, the temperature essentially controls how creative the AI's responses are. So a higher setting will make the AI more varied and creative, while a lower setting will make it more predictable. So if you want more predictability out of your process, you can use the temperature control to adjust that. Then there are a couple of others. I won't go into too much detail on these, but we have max tokens, which limits the length of the AI's response. We have stop sequences, which allows you to specify phrases where the AI should stop generating text. Top P, which adjusts how diverse the AI's word choices are. So a setting of 1 on top P makes the AI consider all of the possible options, which gives you more variety in the responses. So again, generally for business use cases, you might want those responses to be a little bit more predictable. So you may want to adjust that down a little bit. And then you have frequency and presence penalty, which are kind of similar to the above settings. So it's worth playing with those and tweaking them a little bit to see if they adjust any of the outputs that you're expecting. But in general, like I said, we have them set to really sensible defaults that will work for the vast majority of use cases.
All right, thank you. Please feel free to reach out to your customer success team if you have additional questions. And you can also check out docs.processmaker.com for all the details about our release notes, quick start guides, all the background on things we've released in the past to catch you up if you need that. All right, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.